Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to teach you all the movement tech from a beginner to an advanced player to teach you how to master your movement on Apex Legends, to do a tap strafe, to go into a wall bounce, to potentially heal while in the air, and going right into a bunny hop. I know all this movement at a first glance may seem quite overwhelming, but we're going to break it down so it is digestible and easy to learn for you. So let's begin first with a bunny hop. Let us now understand a bunny hop. A bunny hop is a simple movement of going forward and then just bouncing in a rhythm. So when your butt touches the ground or your feet, you are able to bunny hop. So this is a bunny hop movement and you do not lose momentum when you do it correctly. So what can help you do this better? Well, if you're mouse and keyboard, if you go to settings and you bind your control button, your jump, to scroll wheel down or up, this is much easier to achieve. So you kind of got a nice bounce rhythm. This is a little harder to do on console and controller because you're going to have to either tap your button consistently and do it more in a rhythm or on a controller, and it's definitely doable, which is I did there. I was using the spacebar, but it can be a little more challenging. So let's say you want to really spice up the bunny hop. So we slide jump into it and you move left and right. So what I'm doing is I'm holding A and D into a nice bunny hop rotation there. So let's break this down a little further. The slide jump helps you build the momentum forward, and what you're going to do afterwards is simply bunny hop in a nice rhythm. So what you can do to practice a little training regimen is you can pretty much bunny hop completely going all the way around. And we're using Horizon in this example because she has a little bit better airtime and movement mobility capabilities compared to the other legends. So she's great to teach on. So what about the bunny hop that you see where you see the character's butt hit the ground? Let's answer that question right now. So we're going to do a slide jump and you hold crouch, and now you have the bunny hop, which is a little further on the ground. The momentum, as you can see on the upper left, doesn't change from the normal bunny hop that you normally have even bouncing this way. But it does help in terms of dodging fire. So the question is, why would you use a bunny hop? A bunny hop can help you dodge fire instead of going in a straight line because you're jiggling a little bit around. Sometimes it can really throw off an enemy and make you a lot more difficult to hit. So this is what you have the most simplistic form of a bunny hop. Now, in our next segment, I want to highlight quickly here of why slide jumping is so important on Apex Legends. The most simplistic movement tech that you can learn, but also one of the most difficult things to really master and get into a rhythm in. Why is it difficult to master? Because you always have to remember to keep slide jumping. You always got to make sure your velocity is above 200 units. So you see on the upper left hand side of the screen, it says it's at 299. That is whenever you're running forward. Now, if you drop a little bit below that, you might get a dead slide that you're seeing there. So when you're in game and they call this a dead slide, it means that you're not at your max momentum and you're not above 200 units quite yet, and it'll cause you to kind of slide a little irregular. So why do you do this? Is when you slide jump forward, you'll notice that the velocity is peaking over 299. This will help you catch up to opponents, catch up to your teammates. It provides a lot of utility, especially when you're traversing land. And of course, as you know, whenever you're sliding down hills, you gain a lot more momentum. So remember, always keep this flow, practice this, and this should be your base utility, even as a beginner getting used to Apex Legends, and even as an advanced player, always remembering to slide jump into your next encounter and fight. Now, what we're going to teach next is how to wall bounce. Let's do a wall bounce. So remember that scroll wheel button that we're talking about. When you scroll down, it helps you time the jump a lot easier. You can definitely use spacebar, but it's definitely easier to do with a scroll. If you're on controller, the same applies in making sure you hit jump once you touch the wall. So remember how I said everything comes down to the slide jump? The slide jump helps you build momentum. So if I build momentum, you see the peak momentum once I hit the wall. Now, once you hit the peak momentum, you're going to jump again once you hit it to do the wall bounce. So let's do that together now. So we slide jump and then you jump. That is a wall bounce. This is the most simplistic form of it. If you can always get this timing, you're going to be better at wall bouncing. So what am I doing whenever I wall bounce on the wall? It's a leap of faith. So this is the best advice I always give everyone. Remove your hand off any input on the controller, on your keyboard, and go towards the wall and wall bounce. So that is how you do a simplistic version of the wall bounce. And whenever you do this, practice this over and over and over again, and over time, you'll get used to that momentum. A lot of individual players, especially when you're beginners, always feel like you have to do some crazy inputs. It's as simple as just jumping right when you see your character touch the wall. You can also listen for the audio cue, and that's whenever you perfect the wall bounce. So now let's talk about how you tap strafe, because this is going to segue into a wall bounce. Let's first answer the question, what is a tap strafe? A tap strafe, well, this is a normal dodge in terms of like just trying to dodge fire or trying to cut an angle. You'll notice that the angle is not as sharp, no matter how much you turn the camera. Well, a tap strafe will make sure that you do a sharp 90-degree angle. You'll do a nice, really sharp turn, and it helps you dodge fire, and it keeps your momentum going forward. So how are you doing this? So you can do it two ways. The simplistic way is to always bind scroll wheel to forward or down scroll wheel, one of the two. You can also spam W, like I'm doing right there, and you probably heard it on my keyboard, and it also works to also spam the forward input. Essentially, you're just spamming forward input to do a tap strafe. So this is the bare basics of how to do a tap strafe. If you can do this, then you'll master it. Now, if you're on controller, unfortunately, this is not as easy to do and achieve, because essentially you have to press your forward stick to be able to spam the input. So if you're on Steam or in Origin, you can rebind this. You can rebind a keybind, just spam the W input on a different button on your controller. So that's how you see people who are on controller who are tap strafing. And of course, what you can do once you tap strafe is you can turn it into a wall bounce. Let's talk about that. So what we're going to do here is go from a redirect or a tap strafe into a wall bounce. So if you're running forward, remember the slide jump into the peak, and then wall bounce off the wall once you either tap strafe towards the wall or you redirect towards the wall. A redirect is just looking towards the wall so you can achieve the wall bounce. So there's a lot that can be done with this. It makes you much harder to hit whenever you're running towards fire, and you can do a wall bounce. You don't have to do the fancy 360 movement that I'm doing there, but you can definitely just do a simple wall bounce and move forward. You'll notice that your velocity definitely peaks higher, and the beauty behind this, if you wall bounce over a target, you can definitely go over a wall with it and skip that climbing animation. So a little extra tip there that can be beneficial, especially if you're trying to dodge fire and get out of a spot. Now quickly, let's discuss how to do a super zipline jump. A regular zipline jump, if you spam it, you'll go up the zipline, and even if you spam it afterwards, you'll do like a small little jump. Now, what if I told you can do one like this, like you saw at the start of the video? This is actually a lot more simplistic than most people realize. All you're doing is you're just pressing your interact key and jump at the same exact time. It'll send you flying, and there's a lot of mobility and opportunities that you can do here. So let's talk about how you pair this with a potential tap strafe. When you pair this with a tap strafe, you can do insane movements such as this to really get on height and juke your opponent. So what you're doing here when you break down this movement, you've seen Asu, Timmy, a lot of great streamers and pros. We can list, pretty much go down the line and list them. What they're doing is they're doing that zip line that we spoke about, and you can either do a tap strafe or you can just simply redirect. So you can do one of two things. So if we go right back up, and let's do that movement one more time, what you're going to see afterwards, and you just tap strafe and you redirect into a different angle and spot. You don't have to do the tap strafe, but it definitely helps the angle become a lot sharper. Let's talk about the bunny hop heel. So we're tying everything a bit together, and you're moving your camera left and right. Let's say you're being chased, and why it's so beneficial. So let's say you're being chased and you're using one slow heel. The problem with this is that you're running into a straight line and you're unable to cut the corner as quick. So what you can do is remember the slide jump mechanic and then use your heel and bunny hop away from the encounter. You saw this at the very start of the video when we're bunny hopping, and while that movement isn't dramatic, every little bit of movement that you have can help dodge a potential bullet or shot, especially if somebody's trying to hit you with a PK, a Mastiff. All of that can really help benefit you. Now briefly, let's discuss how you do a super glide jump. A super glide jump is what you do is you jump on the box, and afterwards you press your jump and also crouch key at the same exact time at the peak of your climb. When you do this, you're gonna do, and you'll have to spend a lot of time practicing it. It's a one frame, and there it is. It's a one frame opportunity to really do a super glide. It's not difficult to achieve because quite literally all you're pressing is crouch and jump. Very simple, but it's one frame at the very tippy top of that to where you get a perfect super glide. And trust me, I've been doing this for hours and hours and hours, and getting it consistent like you're seeing here is not easy to do. And you'll see again, as I'm doing it, I may not get it every time. It's at the very peak of that jump and you press it. They're not necessarily pressed at the same exact time, but they're really, really close within one frame difference and at the very tippy top of that jump. So this is a super glide, the very fast, very bare basics version of it, very advanced movement, one that you're not going to get all the time. But let's talk about an easier one that you can achieve that is not a super glide jump. What you can do if you can't land that jump all the time is once you're at the peak of your jump, you can slide forward. Now it's personal preference whether you use hold or whether you use toggle. I prefer toggle to help you slide forward and build momentum, because you can do a lot with this, because then you can go into a tap strafe and get away if your super glide just doesn't work, especially if you're trying to be a lot more consistent, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You can simply just go boom and then tap strafe away to be a lot more consistent with your super glides, the fact that they're not as consistent, bluntly. All right, so let's segue to the next topic. So what we're going to discuss here is how you wall bounce off of targets that are really low. So what I mean by that is when you try to wall bounce off a target like this, or a box, or any sort of geometry, and you go towards it, you try to do the wall bounce like I taught earlier, the problem is that you go through a climbing animation. What you can do is hold either one direction A or D, so then you can wall bounce consistently off that target. So what you're going to see, and you can test this yourself, is if you try to wall bounce off of it, you go through a climbing animation, but you can sort of not necessarily skip it, but you tell the game that you're not wanting to climb and that you are looking to wall bounce instead, and that's the goal. And you can do it on a lot of geometry that you'd be surprised and wall bounce even off that. Normally, if you try to wall bounce off this, it's going to cause a climbing animation because it wants you to climb. But if you use that technique, you can pull off a lot more complex movement on Apex Legends that'll help you get out of a bit of a jam. So an example, if you try to wall bounce off this without using that, then you're going to go into a climb animation, but you can use it to really get away. Because if I try to do it, I go through a climbing animation that you saw there. So some quick movement tech that can definitely help you out. Now, all that awesome movement that you saw at the start of the video, let's all piece it together for one big final segment. What are we doing here? A lot of the movement that you see that's really crazy that streamers do when you wrap it all together can be broken down. And so let's break down the gauntlet that I did at the start of the video and let's piece it all together. So you do a super zipline jump, then you slide jump into a tap strafe into a wall bounce. Then if you decide to queue up as a horizon, you push forward, you use the hill here to slide down, and then you bunny hop heel forward. And what you can do afterwards is still, if you would like to wall bounce off of other geometry, then you can jump up and wall bounce, and there you go. What would seem like a lot more complex movement when broken down is a lot more simplistic in form and can be achievable by everybody. And again, this is going to take a lot of time. My best tips and recommendation to practice a lot of this movement, whether it's bunny hopping, moving around, and slide jumping, is practice it diligently to the point where you don't think about it. Essentially, the timing, all it is timing. Even from the super glide jump that you have, is that as you improve on timing and it feels second nature, you no longer have to think about this. All this movement climbing that you see in terms of Apex Legends is really going to help you improve in a fight, and whenever you decide to use that movement tech to either get away, to dodge fire, to retreat to your teammates, and then heal in a different spot, to queue up, to push forward afterwards, let's say your team is fighting and you're trying to catch up after you pop a battery to get in the engagement, this is what makes a difference between an average player and a player who is a definitely seasoned veteran or pro player. Again, hopefully all these tips really helped you improve. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe in the video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.